Welcome back to Midnight Whispers. Last time, I told you about the house on Miller Street. The footsteps, the voice, the boy who never found his way out of that attic. I thought leaving that house meant the story was over. I was wrong. What happened after was worse than anything that happened inside those walls. Tonight, I'm telling you the rest of it, and I need you to understand before we start that I've never told anyone the full version. Not Grace, not my family. You're the first. This is part 2. The door that followed me. After I broke my lease and moved out of Miller Street, I told myself the worst was behind me. I found a small apartment on the other side of town. 3rd floor, concrete walls, fresh paint, the kind of place that felt safe simply because nothing bad had ever happened there. At least nothing I knew about yet. I remember standing in that empty apartment on move-in day, sunlight coming through clean windows, and actually laughing out loud at how normal it felt. No creaky floors, no old wiring, no stories whispered by elderly neighbors about children who never came home. Just white walls and silence, the good kind of silence. For the first month, I actually slept. Deep, dreamless sleep, the kind I hadn't had in weeks. I started to believe my own excuses. Stress, exhaustion, an old woman's story that had gotten under my skin more than it should have. I unpacked the last of my boxes. I bought new curtains, a bookshelf, small things that made the place feel like mine instead of just a place I was hiding in. I started feeling, for the first time in a long time, like a normal person living a normal life. I even stopped leaving the hallway light on. I remember thinking, almost proudly, that I'd finally let it go. Then came the first night of October. I woke up gasping, like something had physically dragged me out of sleep by the throat. My heart was slamming before I even understood why. I reached for my phone, and the screen lit the dark room. 2:47 a.m. I lay frozen, staring at those numbers, telling myself time doesn't follow people home. But some part of my body already knew better than my mind did, because every muscle had locked up, waiting for something I couldn't name yet. That's when I heard it. Not footsteps, the carpet here was thick, and I was 3 floors up, sealed in by other units on every side. This was smaller than footsteps. This was a scratching sound, faint but steady, coming from inside my closet, maybe 2 feet from where my head rested on the pillow. Slow, patient, like something that had all the time in the world and knew exactly where it wanted to be. I told myself it was mice. I told myself that for almost a full minute until the scratching stopped and started again in a different spot, lower, then higher, dragging up the inside of the door like fingers searching for a seam, a gap, a weakness in the wood. I don't remember deciding to get up. I remember standing in front of that closet with my hand shaking so badly I could barely close it around the handle, and the scratching went completely silent the instant I touched the door. Like it knew, like it had been listening for my hand the entire time, and now that it had my attention, it didn't need to keep asking. Inside, nothing. My clothes hanging exactly where I'd left them. A few unopened boxes at the back. An ordinary, empty space that somehow still felt occupied. The way a room feels different right after someone's left it. Warmth still hanging in the air where a body used to be. I stood there for almost 10 minutes, just staring into that stillness, refusing to close the door again, as if leaving it open somehow proved to myself that nothing was really there. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat on the edge of my bed until the sky turned gray outside, and in the silence, I became aware of something I hadn't let myself notice before. The apartment didn't feel empty anymore. It hadn't felt truly empty since the day I moved in, if I was honest with myself. I think some part of me had known that from the very first week, and simply hadn't wanted to look at it directly. The next day, exhausted, I went to work like nothing had happened, smiling at coworkers, answering emails, pretending my hands weren't faintly trembling every time someone mentioned how tired I looked. I told myself it was just one bad night. Everyone has one bad night eventually. Over the next 2 weeks, it got worse in ways I still find difficult to describe without my hands shaking. Lights I was certain I'd turned off would be blazing when I woke. Other nights, lights I'd left on for safety would be dark. The switches ice cold under my fingers, as if no current had run through that wiring in hours, maybe longer. I started sleeping with every lamp on, the way I had during those final nights on Miller Street. It didn't help. The shadows simply found new places to gather instead, behind the couch, beneath the kitchen table, in the narrow black gap under my bedroom door, which I began to watch obsessively, unable to look away, certain that if I blinked at the wrong moment, something would use that half second to cross it. I started noticing other things too. Small things. A cup moved slightly from where I'd left it on the counter. A drawer left an inch open that I distinctly remembered closing. Once, I found 3 of my kitchen chairs pulled slightly away from the table as if someone or several someones had been sitting there recently and had gotten up just moments before I walked in. I stood in that doorway for a long time, staring at those chairs, feeling my skin crawl in a way I hadn't felt since that very first night on Miller Street. The scratching never missed a night after the closet incident. Always 2:47, precise as a countdown. I started to dread the hour before it even arrived. Sitting up in bed, watching the numbers climb, feeling something in my chest tighten with every minute that passed. The way you feel your stomach drop right before a car crash you can already see coming and can't stop. I stopped inviting friends over. I stopped answering calls after dark. I told myself it was because I was tired, but the truth was simpler and far more embarrassing. I was afraid of what might happen if someone else was in the apartment when 2:47 came around. Afraid of what they might hear. Afraid of what they might see that I couldn't unsee for them afterward. Then, 9 nights in, the scratching stopped completely. I remember feeling something close to relief. A stupid, dangerous kind of relief. For one night, I let myself believe it was over, that whatever had followed me from Miller Street had lost interest, or grown tired, or simply moved on to someone easier to frighten. I turned the lights off for the first time in almost 2 weeks. I told myself I deserved one night of real rest. That was the worst mistake I have ever made. I woke up at exactly 2:47, the way I always did now, except this time the apartment wasn't silent. The television in the living room was on, low volume, a show I didn't recognize, just enough sound to prove that something in this apartment had moved while I slept, had walked past my door, had touched the remote with hands I couldn't see. I hadn't turned it on. I know I hadn't, because the last thing I remember before falling asleep was checking, twice, that every screen in the apartment was black. I lay in the dark listening to that murmur of dialogue bleeding through the wall, and understood, with a clarity that felt almost physically painful, that whatever had spent 9 nights scratching at my closet hadn't given up at all. It had simply finished waiting, and now it was out. I could hear it moving beyond my bedroom door. Not footsteps exactly, something closer to breathing, slow and deliberately uneven, like it was mimicking the rhythm of a person trying not to be heard, and doing it badly on purpose, wanting me to know it was there. It came closer with every second, pausing just outside, right where the gap beneath the door let in a thin blade of hallway light. I pressed myself back against the headboard, my phone gripped so hard in my fist that my knuckles ached, too terrified to call anyone, too terrified to make even the smallest sound that might tell it exactly where in the room I was hiding. My own breathing felt impossibly loud to me. I tried to hold it, couldn't. The sound outside my door stopped moving. Then, so quiet I nearly convinced myself afterward that I'd imagined it entirely, I heard the voice again. Closer than it had ever managed to get on Miller Street, closer than it should have been able to reach through a locked door, 3 floors up, in a building it had never once set foot in before that night. You shouldn't have turned off the light. It didn't sound like a child anymore. Not entirely. There was something underneath it now, something older, something that had been wearing that small, sad voice the way you'd wear a coat that no longer quite fit. And for the first time since Miller Street, I understood that I might have been wrong about what exactly had been following me all this time. I sat there in the dark for what felt like hours after the voice went silent. Though I never heard it leave, never heard footsteps retreating down the hallway, never heard the front door, never heard anything at all. Just an absence where the sound used to be, which somehow felt more frightening than the sound itself had. I don't know how long I sat frozen after that. I don't remember falling back asleep, or if what came after was sleep at all. What I do know is that when the sun finally rose and I found the strength to open my bedroom door, there was something waiting for me in the hallway. Something I still, to this day, have not found the words to fully describe to anyone. Something that made me understand, all at once, that this had never really been about a boy looking for a door at all. But that part of the story, I'm not ready to tell yet. Not tonight. That's part 2 of The House on Miller Street, here on Midnight Whispers. I know this one went somewhere darker than the last, and darker than I intended when I first sat down to record it. Part 3 is coming, and it explains everything, including exactly what was standing in that hallway and what it actually wanted from me. If this story has gotten under your skin the way it got under mine, hit subscribe now, because you will not want to miss what comes next. Until then, sleep well if you can. And whatever happens, do not turn off that light.